Linda. Hi, how you doing?
Well, how are you?
Good, good. It's nice to virtually meet
I
you.
know. We'll have to do this in person, like on purpose sometime.
Yes, yes.
How's everything going? It's not a little busy or anything.
I know, right? Totally, totally just chilling. It's going well. I know we had our admitted students day last weekend. That was a big rush. So I'm happy that that's made its pass. It's coming, it's gone, and now hopefully things will be slowing down a little bit soon. So yeah, what
Great.
about you? What's going on in the housing world?
It's we're kind of getting ready for.
Alrighty, welcome, 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 everybody. Hope everybody's doing well on this lovely Monday evening. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and let everybody come on in and get settled, and then we'll get started. Lovely to see all of the students pouring in. I know we have a few ED1 admits, a few ED2s, but the majority of our admits actually come from our regular decision pool. So we just want to say thank you all so much for coming out this evening or this morning, whatever time it may be where you are in the world. We're so excited to have you. And congratulations on behalf of myself, on behalf of Emory, for your admittance to our institution. We're really excited for y'all. Gonna go ahead and get started with my own introductions. I am Sydney Mells. I'm a member of the undergraduate admissions team. I'm also an alum of Emory, which makes this role even more significant to me. And I'll be speaking with you all today, um, not just about the Emory community, but also where you'll be living. So whether you are accepted to the Emory College, the Oxford College, or both colleges, we look forward to you all joining the Emory community as first year students. And again, you all should be very proud of yourselves, and I'm sure your parents and your supporters are as well. So before we get started, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping tips today. This session is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to access it on the Emory's YouTube channel within the next 72 hours. And if for some reason we do experience some sort of technical difficulty, just please be patient as we try to find a way to resolve it. As you know, the virtual world is not perfect, but we will be looking at all of you all's questions that we'll be using through the Q&A tab. So we'll be presenting the information first, and this is going to just kind of allow 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end of our time. I'll be asking most of the questions live as well, so that Linda can spend the majority of her time spending or sharing the important information with you. So at this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Miss Linda Page Bachman, who is the Director of Residential Education. And she's here today to just kind of provide you all an overview of our housing options and answer all the questions that you all may have. Such as, where are you all going to be living? How does housing work? How do you find a roommate? Sorry, and what are your next steps? So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Linda.
Hi there. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, but I'll just introduce myself briefly. Let's see, can you all see my screen now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, and I'm going to now do the fancy slideshow start from beginning thing. There we go. All right. Well, I have not very many slides for you tonight because mostly I want to just have a discussion and have your questions. But I'll introduce myself quickly, just very quickly at the beginning. My name is Linda Bachman, as Sydney mentioned. I'm the Director of Residential Education, which in the world of residence life and housing is kind of the portfolio of the programming and the activities that we do with our students who live with us on campus. But I have wonderful colleagues who do operations and crisis response and facilities needs and hiring of student staff and all the other areas. So they have filled me in, and I will be happy to answer questions on the whole range of the housing and residential experience at Emory. So I'll dive in and share some things, but please put your questions in the chat, and I really want to leave most of our time for discussion. So here we go. Just a quick snapshot of important dates. As you all now probably know, your housing application is available. As you consider hopefully coming to Emory, you will be looking at your housing application, filling out your preferences. That's due on June 1st. It doesn't matter if you turn in your housing application on April 1st or May 31st, you get the same consideration. So it's just by June 1st. And then on July 15th, we let you all know where you've been assigned. Then we have 2 big move-in days for students who participate in pre-orientation programs. You would be moving in on August 19th. And then for those who are doing other things and not participating in pre-orientation programs, you'd be moving in on Saturday, the 24th. So that's kind of the timeline leading up to when you get here. What you need to do, I see we need to change this to 24/4/25. You complete your housing agreement on your My Housing portal by June 1st. It'll ask you some questions about your preferences. If you have a roommate that you want to match with, there's an opportunity to say that there. It gives some indication of like, what are your habits? Are you an early riser? Do you like quiet study space? What are your social habits or expectations for the way you want to share the space? There's a number of questions like that that you can fill out where we will match you with the roommate. Or if you already know somebody that you want to meet to room with, you can indicate them and they can indicate you on your housing application. And then we also have a couple of first-year immersion communities, which I'll talk about in a moment, but the housing application is the place you apply for those as well. And next, here we go. So our first-year halls, we have a bunch of different first-year halls. You can't choose a specific building in your application. We want to try to create a diverse community of students of lots of different interests in all of our first-year halls, but they're all awesome. And I'll tell you a little bit about each one. Each hall has its own personality and its own history. Alabama and Dobbs are kind of our twin oldest halls on campus. So they're right smack in the middle of things. They're 2 relatively small halls. Dobbs does not have an elevator, but it has the best parlor and the warmest, tightest community. A lot of people who get assigned to Dobbs think, oh, I'm in the smallest, whatever. But at the end of the year, I can tell you every time we do surveys about housing satisfaction and how's your experience been living in residence, the Dobbs students love living in Dobbs. So there's Alabama and Dobbs. Then we have, jumping back up to Hopkins, Smith, and Thomas. Together, those 3 halls are referred to as complex. They're kind of like 3 diamonds that are connected at the corners. So in those halls, you get the best combination, I think, of smaller communities connected as part of a larger whole. Hopkins, Smith, and Thomas, the complex hall, is located closest to the academic quad. It's closest to the business school. You get a lot of, it's really close to the library. It's a little bit further away from the heart of student life campus, but it's right in the heart of academic campus. It has wonderful lounges. It has a rooftop garden. The students have done a wonderful job populating the rooftop garden with some grasses and perennials and things that just make it a really special place to be. Rowell and Eagle Hall are 2 of our newer halls. They're large. They're right on the first-year quad. They have great energy and culture, big lounges, large-scale social events, and just community, very sort of high energy and diverse. You'll find in our large halls, you will find smaller communities on your floor and with your group of students with your RA. So you can kind of choose the level of engagement that you want. If you're more comfortable with a small group, you'll find that in any of our halls. But if you really want a big, boisterous, diverse community, you will find that at Eagle and Rowell Hall. Then we have Hamilton Holmes, and I'll skip down to Terman because those 2 halls are like across the corridor from each other. There's a sidewalk that goes between them, and they do a lot of programs together. They're also similar to Alabama and Dobbs. They're also smaller halls, but they partner with each other and create what we call the Termalton community. And then finally, we have Harris Hall, which is our only first-year hall that also houses sophomores. It's next door to Complex, so it's down a little bit closer to the academic quad and the business school. And they have some wonderful mentorship programs between the sophomores and the first-year students who live in Harris. It's unique in that way. It's the only first-year hall that's not exclusively first years, but the students there love it. And again, it's a good mix of large and small community. So that just gives you a little sense of the personality. When you're assigned to any residence hall on campus, you can come and go. Your access card will let you get into the public spaces of the other residence halls. So we have a double layer security system where people can get in if they're on campus residents, they can get into the buildings, but not into the spaces where the student rooms are. So if you have friends who live in Raoul and you live in Alabama, you can get into Raoul Hall's lobby and meet your friends there, but you can't just by yourself decide to go to where the rooms are. So we let students connect with each other across halls, but it's not a free-for-all of anybody can go to any hall at any time. Then I mentioned the theme communities a moment ago. We have 3 theme communities. These are potentially changing over time. These are the ones for next year, but it depends on what our campus partners are interested in. So there's a few other community ideas under discussion for future years. But the idea is for students who share an interest or an identity to live together and have special programming that is led by a faculty member or another leader on campus. It's really designed to offer intentional programming, connect students to resources, and to create a little community within a community. So the theme communities we have for next year are the Black Male Initiative, the Black Women's Initiative, and the Empowering First community for first generation students. They're all a little bit different in their focus. The Black Male Initiative starts with an immersion floor for first year students. And you do not have to identify as Black male to participate. You have to make a commitment to centering the lived experience. So it's open to anyone. We have lots of people of diverse backgrounds who want to connect with these communities, and you are welcome to do so. So it's not exclusive based on your identity. It's centering that identity in the programming. So the Black Male Initiative starts with the immersion community, but it connects to an initiative that is campus-wide for students in all years, plus some faculty and staff to do a lot of like leadership and mentoring and kind of outreach. So that's the main thrust of the Black Men's Initiative. The Black Women's Initiative is run by the director of our Center for Women, and the thematic focus of the programming there is really about self-care and empowerment and community and sisterhood. So they do a lot of the same kinds of programs that the Black Male Initiative has, but their goals are a little bit more community building and self-empowerment. And then Empowering First also has a second year and a third and fourth year chapter. And so the first years experiencing the Empowering First community have the opportunity to connect with upperclassmen, to do sort of scaffolded mentoring. And that's not just upper class mentoring first years, that's first years bringing what they have to offer and sharing that with the upper class students as well. And one of the big thrusts of the Empowering First community is supporting the campus community and doing a lot of programming. So we just last weekend, we had a first gen week celebration that was a campus-wide celebration that the Empowering First immersion community led in partnership with other departments on campus that are supporting first gen students in various ways. And it was basically a great festival and fun. I won't quite use the word party, but people had a great time, and there was lots of information and resources and energy around that. So those are the 3 communities. The way you get into those communities is on your My Housing application. There's a question that says, are you interested in a theme community? And if you are, it will pop up the supplemental application and you choose which one you want to do. The supplemental application is pretty straightforward. It's basically, a little bit about yourself, what you hope to get out of being part of a community, what you think you have to contribute. It's nothing to stress about. It's just mostly information so that the program directors have a sense of who's joining the community. It's not super competitive. Your odds of getting in are pretty good, but we never quite know how many applications we'll have, and we only have so many spaces. So this could be the year that it's super competitive, but in the past, we've really been able to accommodate pretty much everybody who's expressed interest. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to check out the website. There's some more descriptions of the programs, and to submit that application because it could add a nice sort of an extra special layer to your first year housing experience. Roommate matching. I mentioned earlier that in your housing application, you can indicate some preferences in the kind of roommate you might want, whether you have similar study habits or similar preferences about how tidy you keep your room, a few basic questions like that. Or if you have somebody that you've identified, as a roommate and they've identified you and you want to room together, you have to select each other on your housing application. So your application will say, do you have a preferred roommate? And you'll say, why, yes, I want to live with Sydney. And then Sydney will go on her application and it will say, do you have a preferred roommate? And she's like, yes, I want to live with Linda. And then the housing office will match us and place us together. So if that works out for you, that's great, but do not be afraid if you do not have a roommate in advance. We have about 50-50 students pre-selecting a roommate or having one chosen randomly. As of July 15th, when everyone knows their housing assignment, you'll be able to connect with your roommate, whether it's somebody you chose and know about already, or if it's somebody you're meeting for the first time. You'll have a chance to connect before you get here. And we have student staff and professional staff who help all roommates, whether they've chosen each other in advance or if they're randomly assigned. We help all roommates do a roommate agreement and have a conversation at the very beginning of the year about how you want to share the space together. It's something short of a contract, but it's basically a point of reference where you can get to know each other, learn a little bit about each other's habits, develop compromises where you need to. You can revisit it, you can change it, but it's a point of reference of how do we think it's going to work for us to share this space? And that's part of the learning you do in your first year is communication and compromise and conflict management. And, sometimes your best friend is a great roommate, but sometimes your best friend is a terrible roommate. You don't have to be best friends with your roommate. You have to share a space in a healthy and compatible way. So we guide you through some processes and some conversations that help you find that happy place. One other logistical note, it's helpful to have renter's insurance. This is true for if you're going to live in a residence hall or an apartment, or if you become a homeowner someday, you'll probably want homeowner insurance. It's just a best practice. We are a safe community, but things go missing, things get lost, things get broken. If you have renter's insurance, it helps you recover more quickly if your laptop gets Coke spilled on it and it's fried, or if you leave your AirPods in a classroom by accident, or, if something happens and there's water damage in your room, like renter's insurance is a good thing to have. I think this is maybe my next to last thing before we have questions. If you have accommodation requests, whether for medical needs or religious needs or other particular needs where you feel like you need to have a certain kind of housing set up based on those needs, you need to go through the Department of Accessibility Services. And the time to do that is now. It takes time. We do not guarantee that all accommodations can be managed. We only have the rooms that we have, but the Department of Accessibility Services will work with you to get documentation of your need and to make a recommendation about what that might look like for you. Do you need a room that's on a ground floor, or do you need a room that doesn't have a lofted bed? You can choose to loft your bed or not. Or do you need a room that, maybe you need a single room, or you want a room that's really close to a dining hall, or, whatever it is that you and your family and your sort of medical and religious advisors think that you need, the Department of Accessibility Services will ask you to document that and work with you. And, we do our best, we try. We always get more requests for singles than we have singles, but again, we do our best and we find other ways of supporting you if we can't meet the need exactly as specified. We have lots of tools to try to make your experience as good as it can be so that you have all the resources and support you need to succeed. And while I'm on the topic of support, there's an alphabet soup of people who are here to support you in your residential experience. This is not a comprehensive list, but these are the folks that you'll meet early on and often. Sophomore advisors, SAs, these are, and resident advisors, RAs. You're probably familiar with the RA term. These are undergraduate students who are upperclassmen, sophomores, or in the case of RAs, they're juniors and seniors. They are selected in an incredibly competitive process. They are trained like crazy in programming, in crisis response, in conflict management, in administrative tasks and policies and resources on campus. Their role is to help you adjust to college and to connect you to the resources that will help you succeed. So the sophomore advisors, we only have sophomore advisors in first year halls. It's kind of like a near peer, almost like a professional friend in some ways. Their job is really to do programming, to build community, to connect with first year students, to kind of, they were last year where you are now. And so they have a lot of empathy with the adjustment to college, and they can help connect you to your peers, to resources, to activities, to clubs, to places on campus where you can find your people and find that sense of belonging and feel like Emory is your home. The resident advisor also does that, but the resident advisors have responsibilities for monitoring policies and doing facilities walkthroughs. So if there's a facilities issue, the RA will make a note of that. The RAs will facilitate the roommate conversations. RAs will do things like check you in at the beginning of the year and check you out at the end of the year. The RAs will also do one-on-one chats with all of our residents once a semester. We call them swoop chats, just because somebody decided to be cute, so swoop chats. And so we swoop in and we have a one-on-one conversation, which really is a chance for you as a resident to have a one-on-one discussion with somebody who can like connect you, help you. It's basically, how's it going? How are your classes? Maybe you're struggling with a class and they can connect you with a tutor, or maybe you're feeling like you haven't really found your people and you'd love to get involved in something around food or culture, and what do you do? They can connect you with some clubs. They can connect you to counseling center. They can connect you to all sorts of resources on campus that will help meet your needs so that you have the opportunity to thrive at Emory. Most of the time, the swoop chat is just a good check-in, and it's a relationship builder because we want you to know your RA. You may not have anything in particular to discuss during your swoop chat, but if you know your RA and you're comfortable and you have a relationship, then when you do have a question, you'll know where they are and you'll be a little bit more comfortable approaching them because they're there to help. Then we have complex directors who are master's level degree professional staff who live on campus. So they live in the complexes. So Alabama and Dobbs together have a complex director. Rowell has a complex director. Harris has a complex director. So in each of the halls, in each of the building communities, you have a professional staff member who lives in. They supervise the RAs and SAs. So they're kind of the leader of those teams of student staff, but they also are a resource for you. To just anything you need, anything that's going on in the building. If there's a dynamic in the building where, gee, there's a lot of incidents in the laundry room, we need to kind of clean up our act as a community and do better in our laundry room etiquette, the complex director will facilitate that. They're also there to support you one-on-one. So this is your at-home team. Also, the RAs all take shifts in being on call. So there's always an RA on call in every building in the middle of the night. If you get locked out, which is far and away the largest complaint that we have is like, I'm locked out. The RA can perform the lockout and get you back into your room. So there's somebody on call. Now, the campus life professional on call, it's usually one of the CDs. There's a couple of other folks in our professional ranks who participate as CLP on call. They're the adults, they're the professional staff members who back up the RAs. So the RA might be the first person to notice that something, somebody needs help or something's happening, that maybe we have a facilities issue, or maybe, something weird just happened outside and we want to get somebody to lay eyes on it. And do we need to call the police? Because that guy looked a little, whatever it is, whatever the RA sees that the RA needs help with, or if it's a roommate dispute, or if a student breaks their leg, or anything that rises above the level of, put in a maintenance request, the CLP on call will support the RAs, will be the one to be on site to support whatever other resources need to happen. If we need to get emergency medical services there, you'll see EAMS on the list. If we need the police department, if we need SIS, student intervention services, sometimes we'll have a student who has some kind of a health crisis. And the CLP on call will help them get the help they need right then, but they're probably going to need some help with communicating with their professors about getting an extension for a class, or maybe they need support to get a plane ticket back home, or whatever the student's need is. The SIS team kind of picks up where the CLP leaves off. So that just gives you a little snapshot of all the ways that we provide wraparound support for your students. The first year experience, the FYE, we spend a lot of time really helping students find their community and connect with the things that give them a well-rounded Emory experience. We want you to succeed in your classes. We want you to be healthy. We want you to have sort of wellness and good habits for sleeping and eating. But we also want you to have fun and to make friends. So some of the things that you can expect during your FYE signature series is we have what we call the 5-week kickoff. These are required floor meetings that the RAs lead for the first 5 weeks. Very few things are required in residence life, but we require these first 5 weeks of floor meetings because we really want you to get to know who's on your floor. And they each have a topic. Sometimes there's a little icebreaker and get to know you factor. We try to do snacks. One of the topics is, how do you get to Atlanta? How do you use your MARTA card, and what is there to do in Atlanta? How do you take the shuttle to get to the Publix? Let's go to the Beltline, those kinds of things. So we want you to experience Atlanta. One of the weeks is about thinking about sort of academic success and what are the resources to help you, whether it's tutoring or whether it's peer learning or whether it's library resources or the kinds of things that help you succeed academically. We figure these are things that you need to know. We want you to get them early because you might not need that support first thing, but you need to be aware that it's there so that later in the semester and later in the year, if you say, oh, I have this question, I remember something about using my MARTA card or something about the ePass tutoring, I'm going to go ask my RA. But we want to introduce them to you right away and have you know the people in your hall. Songfest happens the Thursday after the first day of classes, and you will spend I think it's 10 or 11 hours total over 5 days of orientation practicing for Songfest. It is a fantastic song and dance kind of lip sync choreographed competition. It is not show choir level quality, I'll just say, but the level of enthusiasm for each hall competing against the other first-year halls in Songfest. Very few things have been around with this level of energy for 40 years at Emory. This fall will be the 40th anniversary of Songfest. And you can ask somebody 10 years, 20 years alum, they've graduated, they will tell you who won Songfest their freshman year. And they will tell you that it was rigged or they were robbed. I mean, the intensity, and it's fun and it is high energy. I have never heard such a loud gymnasium in my life. You get a shirt, people wear their Songfest shirts throughout their time at Emory. So I encourage you to do it. It's really fun and it's a point of reference that shapes your whole Emory experience. Then we have hall programming. This is the programs that your RAs and your SAs will do. So it's local. We have a curriculum that's pretty loose. We train our student staff to say, like, what are the students' needs? And what do we want to help them learn? And then let's design a program that helps them learn that. But if the need is maybe, health and wellness, then maybe the program is, let's go take a walk in Lullwater Park and let's see this great, wonderful natural resource that's right adjacent to campus, and we'll build community and we'll have some snacks and we'll take a walk. Or there's a student docent program at the Carlos Museum. Maybe we should take our floor over to the Carlos Museum and have the student give us a tour of the traveling exhibit that's so exciting. Or maybe it's like, we really want to kind of understand a holiday from a tradition that some of our students participate in, but others it might be new to. So, let's have a Diwali event, or let's talk about what Kwanzaa means, or let's think about, what is Rosh Hashanah, and, how do we understand holidays from different religious traditions, different cultural traditions. We see a lot of hall programming around cross-cultural understanding, and there's often food, and they're all designed to be fun, but they also are trying to be purposeful. We're making a good use of your time while building community. And then the fall building tradition programs, each hall, in addition to Songfest, each hall also does a different program that's distinct for the hall. So in Raoul, their mascot is the lion. And they have the t-shirts all have lions on them. They have 3 sections of the building that all kind of have their own identity. And so Raul runs a program called Lions on the Lawn. And it's mostly like an outdoor picnic. There's dodgeball. There's some friendly competition within the building. Harris typically does a Haunted Harris Halloween program. There's just different programs that are trying to build on that Songfest sense of community, that this is where I live and I'm proud of it and this is my community and we're going to celebrate that. And then in the spring, we have the FYE Olympics, where the buildings compete against each other. So it's kind of the bookend to Songfest. And we just had that a couple of weeks ago. And, it was dodgeball and 3-legged races and paper airplane making contests. Unfortunately, it was too windy for the paper airplanes, but the students had a great time. We bring in food trucks and popsicles and face painting. And it's just fun. It's just for the purpose of getting outside and having some friendly competition and building community. So that's the theme of our first year programming, is building community, having some fun, and connecting you to the resources that will help you succeed. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and look forward to questions and discussion.
All righty. Thank you so much, Linda, for those amazing insights and just great overview on what living in Emory is like. Talking about the first year experience really took me down memory lane. When it came to Songfest, for instance, living in Dobbs, I actually met some of my best friends on my same floor. So you're right about the community really being that standout factor, as well as the great location. So every location is going to have its own experience, and you did a great job kind of capsulizing that in the time we have today. We're going to go ahead and jump to questions. The first one that I see is, if they want only one type of dorm, should they just note that one particular type on their housing application, or should they do all 3? Do you recommend them checking off all 3 options still?
Well, all 3 meaning the immersion communities?
I believe they mean the style of dorm, whether that be.
Well, you don't actually get to choose. You can say, I want to be on a single gender floor. I mean, some of our residence halls have single gender floors. They're all co-ed halls, but sometimes it's separated by floor. And so you can request that. And then if you work with DAS for any other kind of accommodation, they will tell us, what accommodation they recommend in terms of room type or floor type or location, for instance. But you don't really get to choose. You have to just trust that you're going to make the best of it, and you're going to have the best of all possible worlds, and you're going to have friends in your hall and in other halls.
Yes,
But
thank you for that.
if you do in your in the questions where it asks about what sort of roommate or habits, you do have an opportunity there to say, I like big boisterous gatherings and lots of people, or I prefer a quiet place. Like that can be part of the algorithm of who gets placed in which hall.
And then another question is about the hall specifically having carpet, and if there are any that don't have carpet due to allergies and kind of dust allergies that this student has.
I don't actually know the answer to that question. I know we have some rooms that do not have carpet, but I don't think there's any particular hall that's like all without carpet. Most of them do have carpet, but that's something, if you do have an allergy issue, that's something you can note on your application as well. And again, we will do our best to accommodate.
Yes. And then someone asks if they are able to select their dorm for sophomore year, and if people that live in Harris are able to stay in Harris their sophomore year.
Yes. So the way upper class housing goes is sophomores are also required to live on campus. So we require it and we guarantee it. And so you get assigned a housing selection time slot, which is a random assignment. And so, you open your application, you get assigned a time slot, and then when your time slot comes up, you can look and choose where you want to live. And so if you get an early time slot, you're going to have more options. If you get a later time slot, you'll have fewer options. They're all good options, as I said, but a couple of things you can do as a rising sophomore. We have something called block housing, where if you have a group of 4 or 8, or I think even 12 friends who want to live together, and Harris is the primary location where block housing happens, actually. So it's a good example. You can all apply together. And sort of like the roommate matching, everybody in the block has to specify everybody else in the block, and you apply for block housing before the full housing selection. So if you've got a group of friends that you know you want to live together, you can apply for block housing, and then you'll be placed in block housing, and you won't get a room selection time along with everybody else. You'll just be taken out of the pool because you'll already have your spot. A couple other things that we have for upperclassmen. We do have theme and immersion communities for upper class students as well. We have the Bayit, which is a Jewish cultural house. We have the Casa, which is partnered with the Spanish and Portuguese department, which is kind of a language and cultural immersion house. Those are both very small, but intimate and wonderfully supported with faculty and campus leader partners. Then we have the BSA house, the Black Students Association house. The Black Students Association is a student group, but we partner with lots of different offices and groups on campus to build community, and the house has function space as well. So even if you don't live there, you might go to meetings there of a club. But if you do live there, then you get to really be at the epicenter of creating that community. And then we have MLAU, Media, Literature, and Arts Outreach, which is another house that has about 40 spots in it. And all of these can be sophomores, juniors, or seniors, but they tend to be mostly sophomores. And so if you're interested in the arts, you don't have to be an arts major, you don't have to be good at it, you just have to want to live there and participate. There's music practice rooms, there's the art club meets there every Friday. They've got wonderful space for just making things. There's lots of pianos around. So it's very, you don't have to be artsy, but a lot of artsy students who really want to participate find MLAU a really great place to be. And we also have the last thing that you can do that's sort of separate from the regular housing process as a sophomore. We have something called Clifton Communities, where groups of 6 students plus a faculty advisor can propose a project. And it's kind of like creating their own immersion community where it's an application process, and there's suites in Clifton where it's 3 bedrooms with 2 beds each and a living space and a kitchenette. So the suite accommodates 6 students. So hence, 6 students can apply as a group with a faculty mentor to say, we're really interested in Brazilian culture, and we're going to do a whole bunch of projects around Brazilian culture and representing Brazil to the campus as a whole. And what does that mean for us? It might mean food, it might mean some dance, it might mean some, film series that we want to live together and create this project. We had students this past year who met in a women's studies class, and they read a play called it was I won't tell you what it's called because it's pretty profane, but it's a controversial playwright from the 60s whose work had not been performed in so long, but they read it and it just raised all kinds of issues about gender identity and male-female politics in the 60s. So it was kind of Andy Warhol-esque. And they said, we want to put on this play. We want to stage the play. We want to recruit actors. We want to, get the theater reserved. We want to put this play on. And they did. And they made a documentary film about it. And the niece of the playwright came to visit. Like, they just did great stuff. And they had the faculty member was their advisor. So if you and 5 of your friends at the end of your first year say, we're on fire to do this thing that we want to work on together. Maybe we're starting a small business and we want to really work together on what that looks like. Or, maybe we want to talk about what's the Asian food scene look like on Buford Highway? And let's create an app that helps students from Asian countries find food that reminds them of home when they get here to Emory. These are some of the projects that students are taking on. You don't have to build a solar car. You don't have to solve world hunger. It just has to be something that's, a little bit focused with some subject matter expertise. And then we give you a budget and we give you lots of support to do your project. So those are some options where students can select purposefully into certain kinds of housing. And then other than that, you get your lottery number and you pick, and we guarantee you housing, and it'll be great wherever you land.
Yes. Thank you for that. And we're just going to do a couple rapid fire questions. I know that was a very wide breadth of an answer. So I'll give you a bit of a break and ask you some simpler ones. So first one is, are we allowed to live off campus our second year?
No.
All right. Are there any halls?
There's always exceptions, but that was a short answer.
Exactly. Are there any halls that do not have air conditioning?
No.
All righty. What does EMLO stand for again? That's
Oh, MLAO, MLAO. It's Media, Literature, and Arts Outreach.
Thank you. Can a sophomore apply to be an RA?
No. Sophomores can apply, or rising sophomores can apply to be SAs. And then sophomores who are rising juniors can apply to be RAs.
Where are the washing machines located and do they cost money?
They do not cost money, and they are located in different spaces in every hall, but there's plenty of them. So in some of the smaller halls, it'll be down in the basement level. In some of the larger halls, there's multiple laundry rooms on multiple floors.
Nice. So that's our rapid fire round. Back to kind of a bigger picture question. Someone asked, what about housing in their junior and senior year? And if living on campus is an option, what that looks like. And then if there's an off-campus housing kind of assistance that they can use in their upperclassmen years.
Yeah, we have an apartment style community. We call it the Claremont campus. I mentioned Lowwater Park, this wonderful nature preserve. The president's house is there. There's some events and spaces there, but also like rec fields and a pond and running trails. Lowwater Park sits between the main campus and our Claremont campus. So it's about a mile commute, or you take a shuttle, which takes 5 minutes. So it's really not far, but it's apartment style housing for juniors and seniors. And there's, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom studio. There's different configurations of apartments. It's the same process where students who want to live on campus put in a housing application, they get a selection time frame, and then they can choose sort of whatever's there. And, the first people get the whole pick, the last people, maybe on a wait list. We've never been unable to accommodate somebody who wanted to live on campus. And maybe they were on the wait list at first, but then a number of students said, oh, I'm studying abroad, so those spaces open up. We've always been able to provide housing on campus for every student who wants it. That said, it's not a requirement to live on campus for juniors and seniors. And so about, maybe just under half of our students will live off campus. There's a couple of apartment complexes right adjacent to campus. Some people will live in houses, further away in neighborhoods, other kinds of apartments. So you really can choose where you want to be as a junior or a senior. It's pretty convenient to live on campus. Yeah, Emory's not cheap, but off-campus housing is also not cheap. So, we always have students who are super excited about staying on campus because it's super convenient. There's also a new, I think it's opening just this fall. There's a new graduate student housing complex that's opening adjacent to campus, which I think will take some pressure off of the rental market for the apartments that juniors and seniors could have access to.
Yes, absolutely. And from my own experience of living on Claremont campus, it is a great community in itself as well. They have tons of things that go on, so like movie nights and carnivals, and they really do kind of build a really great community. And the shuttles run every couple of minutes too, so it's really easy to get back and forth to
And
classes.
there's a pool and a
Mhm.
gym and a little cafe. So yes, it's
Yes.
like adulting.
And I also have a cautionary tale for you all to really pay attention to those housing deadlines because
Yeah.
I made the mistake of not applying or not reapplying for my housing. I had a single apartment and I didn't say I wanted to stay in that apartment. So unfortunately, I realized a little bit too late that I had missed that deadline. But as you said, Linda, they were so accommodating. And even though I was probably one of the last people to request housing, I still ended up living on Claremont because that's what I needed. They were able to kind of find a way for me to still live there. I was in a great 3-bedroom apartment with 2 really cool roommates, and it was a great year. So they do accommodate requests, and they are very compassionate people in the housing office. I can attest.
We do our best.
Yes. So we have another question about if it's possible to ask for 1-person rooms or singles.
You can ask for that, but you probably won't get it as a first year. And, as a second year, there's still few and far between. Many of our single rooms in first year halls are kind of held aside for those students who do get accommodations through DAS. And as I mentioned earlier, we always get more requests for singles than we can fill, even from DAS. So, maybe if that's something that's important to you, you can say you want it and you might get lucky, but I would not count on that. And really part of learning and growing and developing as a young adult in college is like learning how to live with people and understanding your own boundaries and learning how to compromise and communicate. And there's lots of ways to learn those things, but having a roommate is sure a good one. And by and large, we do have a room change process. If you give it your best try and your RA helps you with your roommate agreement and your CD is mediating a conflict and you just can't make it work. There is a room change process in the fall and again in the spring. Again, we try to make matches as well as we can. If you're having an issue because maybe your roommate is too loud or has late night habits and you're an early go to bed person, when we move you to a new space, or we offer you a space, we try to look for somebody who has those similar patterns where they're not a late night person, they're an early night person like you are. We try, but again, it's just a process of learning about yourself and learning about others and communicating and learning to be flexible. And we manage to get everybody happy. Sometimes we have to make some changes, but it's a good process. It's a fair process. It's not always easy, but students end up in a place where they feel good and comfortable and can focus on being an Emory student and being their best selves. Like I said, sometimes your best friend is a terrible roommate. Sometimes the person you never met before, you maybe aren't really friends with, but you're great roommates because you're just compatible. There's all different styles of being roommate, and we help you find the style that works for you and your roommate and do our best to support you to make it work.
Yes. And someone asked if they have to fly in for orientation and move in, is there a way that they can send in their belongings, their all of their room things ahead of time? And what that looks like, what move-in is like, and then a little bit more on pre-orientation as well.
Yeah. So the mail room, I mean, people send packages all the time. And the mail room you can send it to your own address, like you get your mailing address at Emory, you send it to yourself. And the mail room sets up pods. So in Rowell Hall, there's a little parking deck where I park. My office is in the ground floor of Rowell Hall. And every fall, a third of that parking lot gets taken over with metal cages because of all the packages that are coming in. So if you live in Rowell or Eagle or Hamilton Holmes, Alabama Dobbs, your packages will be there. If you live in Complex or Harris, they have semi-truck trailers that are staffed with packages down at that end of campus. So we try the mailroom. They do a great job of having packages and having support and like dollies and carts and helping you get the things you sent yourself from their holding place to your space. So that's one thing. We also have like move-in. It's like the invasion of Normandy. There is so much planning that goes into move-in of, if you live in this space, you're going to get this color parking thing, and this is the way you go, and you pull up to this curb, and you will be swarmed with sophomore advisors and orientation leaders who help you unload your car magically. They put it into a cart, they whisk it up to the room. So we try to make it efficient, so that you're not like, your job as parents and family members is not to haul stuff. Students, you got to haul some stuff, but you're going to have some help. And we do have bins. So typically we can unload a car in, one or maybe two bins. If people have extra stuff, they'll help you get it in. There's a check-in place where your CD will hand out your key. You'll get a bunch of information. You'll go to your room, have a chance to unpack and settle in a little bit. So it's lots of color-coded shirts, lots of people directing traffic, but also lots of support. It's typically pretty hot on move-in day, so we have lots of fans, lots of bottled water. We suggest wear cool clothing. I mean, all those common sense things. But you will learn a lot more about move-in logistics closer to the time. But just know that it's a giant campus-wide team effort, and we're also excited to welcome you. We want to make it smooth and easy and as little confusion as we can manage on a busy day.
Yeah. And for a little bit of a shifting gears, and when a student is there settled in, the bathroom situation, they want to know how often are the communal bathrooms cleaned?
Every day.
Every day. And
There
then when
There are
Mhm.
some, not very many, but there are some suite style rooms in first year hall. So Eagle and Raoul have some suite style rooms, which means two doubles that share a bathroom. If you are assigned to a suite style room, you and your other suite mates have to clean that bathroom. So people think, oh, I get my own bathroom, but they have to clean it. The bathrooms down the hall are cleaned every day.
That's so true. And then at the end of their first year, we have a little bit of a question of where do they store belongings? How does that generally work for the summer?
Yeah. So we have an RHA, which is a Residence Hall Association, which is a student organization where every hall has a hall council. And you as incoming first year students, you can be president of your hall council. I mean, you can be an officer, you can help with programming, you can help build campus community, you can do advocacy. If you say, well, we need this resource for our hall, our foosball table's falling apart, can we get a new one? Or, whatever it is, whether it's entertainment or something more substantive, the halls are advocates. One thing RHA does is we have relationships with vendors where RHA is the entity that contracts with the vendor, and then they get a little bit of commission off of the sales, and that commission goes to fund the programs and activities. So one of the companies that we work with is called Storage Squad. Their contract is up for bid, so it might be a different company next spring. We're looking at that. But the idea is if you want to store your things over the summer, they will store them for you. And they bring boxes to campus. You sign out however many boxes you need. It's between you, the student, and Storage Squad. It's not an Emory thing, but we facilitate by giving them space to set up and deliver the boxes. And then once you've packed your stuff, you just leave it in your room. And after you've moved out of your room, your Storage Squad boxes are there. Storage Squad comes in and takes them, and they're all marked, and you work with them to know how many boxes and what the bill's going to be. And then later in the summer, Storage Squad will get back to you and say, where are you living next year? Where would you like your boxes delivered? And then you tell them your housing assignment for your sophomore year. And when you arrive for sophomore year, your boxes are in your room. And it's boxes. It's also things like, it could be a floor lamp, or it could be a suitcase, or it could be a rolled up rug. It doesn't have to be just a box, but it's items, a mini fridge. We also have the RHA contracts with a company called Collegiate Concepts, which does micro fridges, which is a mini fridge with a microwave built in. You're not allowed to have a microwave that you bring yourself. The only microwaves we allow are the ones that are part of these micro fridges. So that's, again, you'll hear more about that, but that's another example where it's a vendor that delivers, takes away, delivers again. You don't have to do the hauling around. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to bring it. And then if you use that service, the RHA gets a tiny little fraction of the proceeds to use for programs that enrich your experience.
Yes, and speaking of, an enriching experience, we have someone so nice enough to drop along with their question, just thanking you for this event and, allowing, this conversation to be had about housing and life at Emory. They are, however, having some technical difficulties logging into the housing portal with their Opus login and are asking what they can do.
So it typically takes about 48 hours after you've sent in your deposit before your housing portal becomes live. So if you said, I'm coming to Emory and I'm sending in my deposit on Friday, and you try to do your housing thing on Monday, it might not be up yet. So my first suggestion would be to give it a day or two. But the second suggestion is if you run into difficulties, you can always email housing@emory.edu. It's just the
Yeah.
word housing@emory.edu. And that's a shared inbox that the entire housing operations team staffs, and they get back to you within 24 hours. And so if it's been more than 48 hours since you've deposited and you can't log in, housing@emory.edu, and they will fix you up.
Yes, they are very responsive. As you said, it's, monitored by multiple people a day, so they'll be able to help you out with that. Um, Looking at parking availability on campus, they asked if you recommend bring a car. Now, I know
No.
that first year you're not allowed on Atlanta's campus at least to bring a car. Oxford, yes. Mhm.
Yeah, no cars for first years. And really, you don't need a car. I think for our juniors and seniors who choose to live off campus, depending on where they live, they may want a car. If you live on Claremont, you can get parking, and you can pay for a parking pass, and there is parking there, but you don't really need it. And the shuttle is so convenient, and you can walk, and there's many other options to get around. If you say, oh, I'm living at Claremont, but my classes are all on main campus, I want to drive, you're going to need to park when you get there too, which is, it just is going to add up. So I would say, think twice, think 3 times before you bring a car. And it's not a choice you need to make right now because you can't have one as a first year.
How is the kind of sophomore advisor situation set up? Are they compensated for room and board, or is it some sort of stipend? What does that look like?
They get partial compensation toward their cost of their room, and they get a small stipend.
Nice,
But
nice.
it was a volunteer position. But we've been trying to be leaders nationally in lots of things, but one of those things is to make sure that our student staff have the best training, have the best support, are compensated, fairly, and then some. We ask a lot of them, and we want them to feel like they are being treated responsibly and professionally and fairly for the effort that they put in. So we have one of the best packages of compensation for SAs or equivalent roles and RAs in the country. Now, do RAs want more? Of course, we would love to be able to, add a zero. But when we compare ourselves to benchmark institutions, we offer a more competitive package than a lot of our peer institutions, and we have amazing students. They are amazing students. The RAs get full room, their full room covered and a stipend. So they get more than the SAs do because their responsibilities are much broader and sort of higher impact.
Yes. Yeah, great. Saying thank you for this insightful session. What are the possibilities of pairing with a roommate with the same Pentecostal religious beliefs? And also what the accommodation cost is like. I'm not sure.
So in terms of pairing with somebody, you can ask if you know somebody, great, sign up for each other, you're good. And sometimes the way people sometimes find roommates, if they don't know somebody already, but they really want to choose a roommate in advance, is they'll look on like the Facebook page or the Instagram page or some of the class year, Emory class of 2028. Oh my goodness. My daughter's class of 2026. So I'm watching the years fly by. So the Facebook page and other social media is sometimes a means for people to connect, say, oh, well, you're also from this part of Wisconsin, or, you're also taking the flight from Los Angeles, or you also participate in, this activity or this club or church or cultural affiliation. So that's a place that you can find somebody. You can also, if you don't have somebody in mind, you can certainly indicate that on your housing application that you would love to be paired with somebody who shares your religious beliefs. That's not a guarantee. There may not be somebody who fits that profile, or that person or people may have other preferences, but you can certainly ask. And we will do our best to make matches that are successful.
Mhm.
And the accommodations question, the accommodation, if you get an accommodation, you pay the same rate. Typically the room rates are by room type. So a double costs a little bit less than what's called a super single. If you're in a space that's designed as a double, but for some reason, somebody moves out and we don't need the space for another student, you can sometimes, not always, but sometimes you'll have the opportunity to, if I pay extra, I can keep it as a super single. Then there's like singles that are just designated as singles that couldn't possibly be doubles. Then there's the apartments. So different room types have different rates, but you're going to pay the same rate for a double in Alabama as you are for a double in Rowell, as you are for a double in Complex.
Yes. And I know we kind of already touched on this, but we have a question on whether or not housing is guaranteed all 4 years.
It is not. It is guaranteed first and second year. It's both required and guaranteed. And for third and fourth year students, it is not guaranteed. It is not required. But as I said, we have, half, give or take, of our third and fourth year students choose to live on campus. And everyone who says they want to live on campus, we have managed to accommodate them.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have a question on shuttles. I like this because as someone who didn't have a car all 4 years, that's going to be your best friend. What they look like on the weekdays, weekends, if they run into Atlanta. Yeah.
All of the above. I mean, you probably have more detail about this than I do, because I wasn't a student at Emory. But they run, every 5 to 10 minutes, it seems. And there's several routes that shuttle back and forth between Claremont campus and the main campus that go, from the medical school down to Emory Village, around Eagle Row. Like there's different routes that will get you where you need to be. There's also a couple of shuttles, like every Thursday, I think there's a shuttle that goes to the Publix, or, there's a shuttle that will take you to Midtown Atlanta. So there's some regular routes. And then our student activities board also sponsors what they call experience shuttles, which are not part of the regular day-to-day shuttle program, but on, a couple of Saturdays every semester, they'll be like, oh, it's experience shuttle day. We're going to take people to where the High Museum and the aquarium and the CNN Center and the Coca-Cola, like the sort of tourist cultural arts hub of Midtown Atlanta. We're going to run a shuttle there. Or we're going to run a shuttle to the Beltline, which is a great place for sort of food, entertainment, restaurants, walking, hiking, biking, skateboarding, sculpture park, old markets. I mean, it's a happening place. So we have a shuttle that will take students there on these experience shuttles.
Yes, I think you pretty much covered it all. We do have also a shuttle that runs from the Oxford to the Atlanta campus as well. So that's cool too for those who want to check out Oxford or visit Atlanta for a homecoming event or something.
And we do typically, and I think this is through a student organization, so it's not through the main shuttle program, but typically around big holidays when students are leaving campus, there'll be airport shuttles.
Hmm. And I see someone asked if there's a shuttle that connects to Georgia Tech. Yes, there's also a Georgia Tech shuttle. All righty. Well, it is 7 o'clock. We have a lot more questions left.
Well, I have some, I can stick around a little bit if you,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I can as well.
And
Perfect.
I appreciate, for those of you who need to pop off, I appreciate the chance to talk with you. And it's a
Yeah.
little bit weird sort of speaking into the void because I can't see you, but I really can't wait to welcome you to campus. I can't
Yes.
wait to see you. I put my email at the beginning, but you can always email Sydney and she can find me with questions beyond tonight. I'm happy to answer what I know and find answers to what I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all again for anybody who has to hop off. Congratulations again on your acceptance. We hope to have you in the fall. We're going to go ahead and take a few more minutes to look at these questions left in the chat so that no stone is unturned. Um, let's see. So we have a question on small appliances and what like generally students use or keep in their double rooms.
Yeah, very few. And there, if you look at the housing page, the housing at emory.edu, or it's the webpage. I'm blanking on the URL. Housing, just Google housing Emory,
Yes.
and the policy document. And in your My Housing application, it will also link to the housing contract that specifies what you're allowed to bring and not allowed to bring. We want to make sure that there's enough fuses and circuitry for everything, hence the microwaves. You can only have the microwave if you get it in combination with the micro fridge, but you could do your own mini fridge, just a fridge if you wanted to. Students bring lots of electronics. You can bring a water kettle, like if you wanted to heat up water for tea or ramen, but it has to be UL listed. It has to be the kind that has an automatic shutoff. There's some very specific rules that are basically around safety, that we don't want too many electrical things or things that could be, hot to the touch in your space.
Yes. A little bit more on kind of the space as far as furniture and what's available in the rooms and if there's any furniture that a student potentially needs to bring.
Yeah, you don't need to bring anything. And in fact, there's not a whole lot of room. So you will get, for each student, there'll be a bed, a dresser, a desk, and a chair. And some of them have like built-in bookshelves. Some students will bring like those little folding lounge chairs. They're like $20 at Target. My kid has one. They're sort of a circle and they fold up flat and then they can, so furniture, if you're going to bring anything, think of that scale. Think small, folded, lightweight, portable. But really, you don't need a lot. You will have the option in most spaces to either loft or de-loft a bed. So some students will want their bed lofted, which means it's kind of put on risers so that they can put their desk or a dresser underneath it and make a little more floor space in the room. Other students really want their bed low. They want the light from the window, or they want more room for posters, or whatever it is, or maybe they don't want to climb up a 4-step ladder to get into their bed. So if you get into your room and you find that your bed is lofted and you want it de-lofted, there's a team of people who will come do that for you, and vice versa. So people are creative. It'll be a comfortable space, but you're not going to have loads of extra space. You do not need to bring in love seats and extra dressers and coffee tables. Like, you will wish you hadn't.
I recommend ottomans because it's a perfect thing to store something in it, but also it's a great kind of seating thing to have. You have friends over, they can pop a squat on the ottoman. It's great for kind of maximizing that space as well.
Yes, good suggestion.
All right. What comes in a well, we kind of talked about that, the standard freshman dorm room, and we spoke on microwaves, the micro fridge being that required appliance that we provide. Um, oh, we have a question on practice rooms with pianos in the first year halls.
So every hall has quiet hours, and that's a community decision. So as one of those first floor meetings, you're going to have an opportunity to kind of vote and come to consensus on what the quiet hours should be. They're typically like after 10 or 11 p.m. on weeknights and after midnight on weekends. That it varies, and it also varies by floor. So each floor has its own lounge. Some of the floors are larger. They have multiple lounges. There's more large scale community lounges in the lobbies, but there's also small study spaces that might accommodate, 6 or 8 or 12 students at a time. And so each floor will determine what their community rules need to be about how they want to use that shared space. If this is a great space, we have some people who really love to cook in the community kitchen and they want to have dinner there, that could be great, but everybody's got to clean up. So, how you use the room, how you make noise, what the community standards are, they're pretty much common sense, but each community discusses them and comes to consensus.
Yes. Alrighty, and this is a question on cost, if it's all the same for all of the first year, or not all of the first year halls, but all the residence halls.
It's by room type and not by hall. So if you have a double or a single or a 2-bedroom apartment or whatever room type you have, the price is by room type. Doesn't matter which hall you're in.
Yes. All right, a little bit more on the kind of floor carpet situation. Someone asked about potentially requesting a removal if there isn't a dorm available without carpet, if the carpet could just be taken up.
Yeah, no, they're like, it's carpet. It's not just like a rug. But we do have spaces that do not have carpet. And I apologize, I don't know dorm by dorm what that looks like. But if you experience allergies with carpet, rest assured you are not the only one. And we have created spaces that accommodate students who have DAS accommodation saying cannot have carpet because of allergies. So if you're concerned about that, your first stop really should be DAS, because any special preference or need associated with your room, if you get that approved through DAS, we can then, we can't guarantee that we can meet every single need that DAS suggests, but we have a pretty good track record. And you would not be the first person to say, I can't do carpet, but that starts with DAS.
Perfect resource for that. All righty. Someone asked if you can talk a little bit about how students clean their own rooms. Are there things like vacuums available to rent out, things like that?
Yep, every hall has an RA closet that has vacuums in it, among other things. And so if a student wants to sign out a vacuum during business hours, they can just, talk to knock on the complex director's door or, the RA in their hall. But if they want it in the evening, there's an RA on call, and that person's job is to do things like let you in when you've locked yourself out, or sign out a vacuum, or come deal with if somebody's being noisy upstairs and you want them to quiet down. You know, we want you to be empowered to go up and say, hey, do you mind keeping it down? But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or if you want some support, or if you've already asked twice, your RA does that. So your RA on call is your resource after hours for all those things, whether you're trying to clean your room or have quiet time to study, or if you're waiting outside in the cold because you lost your key.
Yes. And then as far as pre-orientation, someone asked if you can explain this difference between if they moved in on the 19th versus the 24th
Yeah,
about
so pre-orientation is run by another department. So I don't want to, take what I say with a grain of salt because I'm not an expert on pre-orientation, but there are a number of pre-orientation programs that bring students to campus 4 or 5 days early for a kind of pre-immersion experience. And so, for instance, one of them I'm familiar with is the WISE program, which is something interfaith spiritual experience. It's run by the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life. And it's for students who really want to connect with a faith community and faith identity. And it's interfaith. So it's, lots of people from different faiths coming together, but it's an opportunity to kind of find some spiritual roots at Emory for a few days before everyone else gets here. There's another one that's focused on outdoor recreation. There's one that's focused on leadership. There's 4 or 5 different pre-orientation programs. We also have, it's not pre-orientation technically, but they come at the same time. We have the International Student Welcome. So for first-year students who are international students, it's a required pre-orientation because there's so much more for international students to kind of figure out and navigate as they get settled, maybe some of them for the first time in the United States. And so those programs will start a few days early, be led by faculty and staff and experts in the subject at hand. And about maybe a third, maybe 40% of our students participate in one of them. We also have, like, if you're on an athletic team, you'll come back early and have practice. So we have about 40% of our students actually move in on that first big move-in day because they have things to do before the rest of the students come. It's a great way to get connected. It's a great way to make some friends and feel like you've already found a little bit of your footing before everybody else gets here. But I'll say, if you don't do it, you're gonna do just fine. It's not like, if I miss out on this, I'm never gonna make friends. It's not that at all. It's just, if there's a program that meets your particular interest and you want to do it, it can be a great thing to do.
yes. And quick question on sinks. I believe this answer is yes, because it was one of my standards as a first year, if all first year dorms have sinks. And that's
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that question. I meant to mention that. Yeah.
yeah. You would be surprised how, like, you don't realize how helpful having running water on hand
Oh
is
my
until
word.
you know. Yes. Someone asked if there's any room dividers in the doubles, if there's like any way that it's set up where it's such as like dressers, closet modules, things like that.
Well, there's not anything that is a specifically purpose-built room divider, but students are creative in how they set up their spaces. And so, you can have beds that are at right angles to each other, or dressers or desks. I mean, you can move things around. You can't remove furniture. You can't say, oh, I don't want this dresser. You can't take furniture out. But students are pretty creative about setting it up in a way that maximizes the use of the space. And for some of them, that means they want shared space because they anticipate having some friends over, and that's part of what they agree on. For others, that means having super quiet space, or that, somebody can turn on their light and it's not going to shine on the face of their roommate. So you just have to be creative, but there's no official room divider.
Yeah. Someone asked if some students can bring their own mini vacuums. Yes, you can. Someone asked how cold it gets and if you should wear coats or winter boots to walk around campus. I feel like that really depends on the time of year. But I would say that it doesn't. I'm from the Chicago area, so it can get a lot colder than it does down here. You would at times need, though, like a light coat or a hood, because it can get a little brisk in certain parts of the year.
Yeah, we usually have 1 or 2 weeks in January, February, where I'm like, God, it's freezing. But outside of that, it's like people wearing shorts.
Yeah, exactly. All righty. Someone asked about soundproof practice rooms being available in in the spaces?
Not in all spaces, but MLAU, when you're a sophomore or above, has some soundproof practice spaces. I think the music department, of course, has lots of soundproof practice spaces. I don't think, yeah, there's one at Claremont. I'm just running through in my head the first year halls. There are pianos, but I don't think there's soundproof practice spaces in the first year halls.
Right. And then as far as rooms having twin beds or bundle beds, I'm not sure what a bundle bed is. You might know more about what that
You mean
question
like a
entails.
bunk bed, maybe?
Oh, bunk bed. Okay.
Um,
They
if
asked, is
you
it two twin beds or bundle bed? Maybe bunk bed.
So it can be, you can set it up as bunks.
Mhm,
Most people tend to either have two lofted beds or two twin beds or one of each.
mhm.
But I think it's possible to create a bunk bed because the beds are sort of modular, and there's ways they go together that are safe and sturdy. And we don't want you to loft and de-loft your bed by yourself. We have people do that because we want to make sure it's done right and solidly. But I think they could be turned into a bunk. It's a twin X long. You've probably seen this in, every college that you've been looking at says, oh, twin XL. When you go to the Target and you're buying sheets, twin XL. College kids are taller than children, so X long twin is the bed size.
And make sure you get sheets that fit a twin XL as well.
XL twin. And some people like to get a little mattress topper, like a little, egg crate foam or something with a little extra squish to it, just to kind of make the mattress feel a little more luxurious.
Yeah.
They're actually not bad, but I think they're better with a little extra squish.
Exactly. It really does make all the difference with that extra little thin layer there. Someone asked about buzzing people up into a dorm lobby. Say you have a guest or someone who isn't an Emory student, family, friends.
Yeah, so fellow students who are residents on campus can get access to your dorm lobby with their own card. If you want to bring them into your room, you have to escort them to your room, and they are your guest and you are responsible for their behavior. So they have to meet community standards and, behave with quiet hours and, alcohol or just whatever the rules are, you are responsible for your guest behavior. And there are rules like you have to talk with your roommate about, do we occasionally have an overnight guest? And what are the rules about that? Not more than one night or never, or only under these circumstances. So with your roommate, you can decide together how you want to treat guests. Sometimes we'll see a conflict among roommates where one person is just has their friends all in another hall, and when they come to their dorm, their home, they just want to kind of be by themselves and study and sleep, while their roommate, this is their social center and they always have friends in the room, and then the roommate with the friends elsewhere ends up feeling like they're crowded out of their own space. So these are places where we come back to that first roommate agreement. We say, okay, do we need to renegotiate this, or we need to respect this, or what's the compromise? And so guest policies, within the housing guest policies, each roommate pair will figure out how they want to handle that. But when you have a guest in that secure private space where your room and other students' rooms are, that guest is your responsibility.
Yeah. And then a little bit on the car situation. Someone, I guess they might have been misinformed that you are allowed to have cars your first year. However, that is not the case. Yeah.
And really, you don't want a car. I mean, even if you could have a car, what you want to do in your first year is be a college student and be at Emory and be on campus and learn to use the shuttle and walk and explore and be present where you are and not have wheels to go zipping everywhere. You really want to use your time at Emory to learn Emory and to learn how to be a college student at Emory. So I think it makes perfect sense, sort of logistically, but also just developmentally, where you are in your life and what you want to be focusing your time on. You don't need a car in your first year.
Yeah, I agree. Emory is honestly its own world in a way. Like as a first year, the first year experience itself is such a whirlwind. There's so many things to do right on campus where when people were asking me like, what have you been up to in Atlanta? It's like I haven't really been there that often, like unless it was something that Emory was sponsoring and I was going with my friends. So it really is so much to do right on campus and adjusting to being a college student and figuring out your classes, things like that where having a car, I really didn't feel the absence of that as a student. And also, there's also the shuttles and there's also ride shares, and that's honestly really great too, because with traffic, sometimes you don't really want to be the person dealing with that anyway. So
Well, we think sometimes, I talked a little bit about the first year experience. So, one sort of shorthand way we think about it is the first year experience is learning how to be a college student. Like what does that mean to be in this place and have all this independence and deal with a roommate and be away from home and navigate all these, choices you make about sleep and diet and social life and all of those things. And then your second year, it's kind of learning how to be a college student at Emory. You're a little deeper into your classes, you're choosing your major, you're connecting with clubs, you're really tapping the Emory resources now that you kind of got your sea legs under you. And then your junior and senior year, it's like, how do you use Emory to propel you to the impact you want to have beyond Emory? So we try to have our programming, I shared a little bit about the first year focus. We have a similar kind of set of goals or a loose curriculum for the sophomore year experience and for the upper division UDX experience. Really thinking about where are students, what do they need, what can Emory be doing to support their development as a whole human at this point in their lives. And it looks different as you go through your time here, and it should.
yes. Yes, I think that's a great way to kind of close out the session for tonight, kind of that broader scope of what each year, kind of what you gain from each year. That's a really great way to kind of see it, because it really is it's a journey. It really is. It's a journey, and it's a pivotal time in your life where so many things coming at you at once. And it's really important to make sure you have a great foundation of community and support and familiarity in the space that you're in, so to be able to spread your wings and to be able to accomplish and achieve all the great things that we know you all are going to do, whether it's at Emory, we hope, or another institution. We're really excited for you all. We have two more questions, although they aren't related to housing as much, so we can
I'll
just
try.
briefly touch on them as much as we can. As far as dining hall options and meal plans, service hours, things like that, they would appreciate any insight that we might have on that.
So the best thing I can tell you to do is look at the dining website.
Mhm.
That will have all of that information. I will say there are options. There are lots of hours. There are lots of different sort of dietary accommodations within the big dining hall, but there's also there's a kosher kitchen, there's halal, there's all sorts of different dietary needs. There's gluten-free, there's vegan, there's, they have giant signs saying, here's 9 different things that you might be alert to in your food choices. And this is where you go to make sure that you're getting what you need. But the food is good. There are retail places, there are meal plan places. It's good. So dining website is going to be your best bet.
Mm-hmm. And for your first year, you're actually required to have the package as a full-time, what is it? Unlimited meal swipe plan.
Yeah.
So you have unlimited swipes at the DTT, and that's kind of for the first year. And then after that, going beyond that, it's really your choice as to how much you'll be eating on campus. And if you want to have more so dually dollars than swipes, things like that, it's customizable as well. So check out the site, it's really helpful. And then last but not least, a little bit on pre-orientation registration. Do you have a date as to when that opens by chance?
I do not. Let me see if Dr. Google can tell us.
Dr. Google. I like that.
I can Google just as well as you can Google. Let's see. Pre-orientation deadline. Let's see what that gets. Well, now I'm getting early decision application. You've already crossed that page. College. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to waste your time while I scroll through a bunch of search results. Y'all can Google, and you will be getting information about pre-orientation programs. So you can either Google and see what you can learn on your own, or you can sit back and it will come to you in pretty short order.
Yes, and read those emails.
Yeah.
Read them thoroughly. They have all the information you need, and they will be there to kind of help along with all the deadlines and opening and registration and all of that. But I think that wraps up for tonight. Thank you all again so much for coming. Thank you, Linda, for joining us today. You were
Pleasure.
so helpful. Yes, this has been really great.
I want to see you all on campus, and good luck and safe travels, and we'll see you in August.
Yes, we hope to see you in August, y'all. Have a good one. Take
Goodbye.
care. Bye.